Computer CPU 50 MCQS with Urdu explanation. 1. CPU stand for? A. Central Processing Unit. B. Computer Processing Unit. C. Central Program Unit. D. Computer Program Unit. Answer: Central Processing Unit. CPU stands for Central Processing Unit. It is the main processing component of a computer and executes instructions. 2. What is the main function of the CPU? A. To print documents. B. To process instructions. C. To delete pictures. D. To store files permanently. Answer: To process instructions. The main function of the CPU is to process and execute instructions given by computer programs. 3. Which part of the computer is often called the brain of the computer? A. Monitor. B. Keyboard. C. CPU. D. Printer. Answer: CPU. The CPU is called the brain of the computer because it processes instructions and controls many computer operations. 4. Which unit of the CPU performs arithmetic and logical operations? A. CU. B. ALU. C. RAM. D. ROM. Answer: ALU. The ALU performs arithmetic operations such as addition and subtraction and logical operations such as comparisons. 5. What does ALU stand for? A. Arithmetic Logic Unit. B. Automatic Logic Unit. C. Arithmetic Link Unit. D. Advanced Logic Utility. Answer: Arithmetic Logic Unit. ALU stands for Arithmetic Logic Unit. It is the part of the CPU responsible for arithmetic and logical operations. 6. What does CU stand for in a CPU? A. Central Utility. B. Control Unit. C. Computer Unit. D. Control Utility. Answer: Control Unit. CU stands for Control Unit. It directs and coordinates the activities of the CPU and other computer components. 7. What is the main function of the Control Unit? A. To perform calculations only. B. To control and coordinate computer operations. C. To store permanent files. D. To display output. Answer: To control and coordinate computer operations. The control unit manages the sequence of operations needed to fetch, decode, and execute instructions. 8. Which component temporarily holds data and instructions being processed by the CPU? A. RAM. B. ROM. C. Hard disk. D. DVD. Answer: RAM. RAM temporarily stores data and instructions that the CPU is currently using or processing. 9. Which CPU component stores small amounts of data for very quick access? A. Register. B. Monitor. C. Printer. D. Keyboard. Answer: Register. Registers are very small and fast storage locations inside the CPU that hold data, instructions, or addresses during processing. 10. Which memory is located inside or very close to the CPU and is used for fast access? A. Cache memory. B. Optical disk. C. Hard disk. D. USB drive. Answer: Cache memory. Cache memory stores frequently use data and instructions so the CPU can access them quickly. 11. Which CPU component performs logical comparisons? A. ALU. B. CU. C. Power supply. D. RAM. Answer: ALU. The ALU performs logical operations and comparisons, such as checking whether one value is equal to or greater than another. 12. Which of the following is a CPU manufacturer? A. Intel. B. Google. C. YouTube. D. Microsoft Word. Answer: Intel. Intel is a major semiconductor company that designs and manufactures processors and other computer hardware. 13. Which company is another major manufacturer of CPUs? A. AMD. B. Adobe. C. Canon. D. Nokia. Answer: AMD. AMD is a major semiconductor company known for designing and producing CPUs and other processors. 14. What is CPU clock speed commonly measured in? A. Bytes. B. Hertz. C. Pixels. D. Giga. Answer: Hertz. CPU clock speed is measured in hertz, which represents cycles per second. 15. Which unit is commonly used to express modern CPU clock speed? A. Gigahertz. B. KB. C. MB. D. DPI. Answer: Gigahertz. Modern CPU clock speeds are commonly expressed in gigahertz, where 1 gigahertz equals 1 billion cycles per second. 16. What does gigahertz stand for? A. Gigabyte hertz. B. Gigahertz. C. General hertz. D. Gigabit. Answer: Gigahertz. Gigahertz stands for gigahertz and is commonly used to express CPU clock frequency. 17. A CPU with multiple processing cores is called A. Multi-core processor. B. Single memory processor. C. Storage processor. D. Graphic processor only. Answer: multi-core processor. A multi-core processor contains 2 or more processing cores in a single processor package. 18. What is a CPU core? A. A type of storage device. B. An individual processing unit within a CPU. C. A computer cable. D. A type of monitor. Answer: an individual processing unit within a CPU. A CPU core is an individual processing unit capable of executing instructions. 19. Which processor has 2 processing cores? A. Dual core. B. Quad core. C. Octa-core. D. Single core. Answer: dual core. A dual core processor has 2 processing cores. 20. Which processor has 4 processing cores? A. Dual core. B. Quad core. C. Hexa-core. D. Octa-core. Answer: quad core. A quad core processor contains 4 processing cores. 21. Which processor has 8 processing cores? A. Dual core. B. Quad core. C. Octa-core. D. Single core. Answer: octa-core. An octa-core processor has 8 processing cores. 22. What is the basic cycle followed by a CPU to process instructions? A. Input print delete. B. Fetch decode execute. C. Save copy paste. D. Read write print. Answer: fetch decode execute. The CPU generally fetches an instruction, decodes it to understand what it means, and then executes it. 23. In the instruction cycle, what happens first? A. Encode. B. Decode. C. Fetch. D. Print. Answer: fetch. During the fetch stage, the CPU retrieves the next instruction from memory. 24. What happens during the decode stage? A. The instruction is interpreted. B. The result is printed. C. Data is permanently stored. D. The computer is shut down. Answer: the instruction is interpreted. During decoding, the CPU interprets the fetched instruction and determines what operation needs to be performed. 25. What happens during the execute stage? A. The instruction is carried out. B. The instruction is deleted. C. The monitor is turned off. D. The keyboard is disconnected. Answer: the instruction is carried out. During execution, the CPU performs the operation specified by the instruction. 26. Which CPU register normally holds the address of the next instruction to be executed? A. Program counter. B. Accumulator. C. Instruction register. D. Status register. Answer: program counter. The program counter keeps track of the memory address of the next instruction to be fetched. 27. Which register holds the current instruction being processed? A. Program counter. B. Instruction register. C. Memory address register. D. Accumulator. Answer: instruction register. The instruction register holds the instruction that has been fetched and is currently being decoded or executed. 28. Which register is commonly used to hold intermediate arithmetic and logical results? A. Accumulator. B. Program counter. C. Instruction register. D. Memory address register. Answer: accumulator. The accumulator is a CPU register commonly used to hold intermediate results during arithmetic and logical operations. 29. What does CPU performance generally refer to? A. How efficiently and quickly a processor handles tasks. B. The size of the monitor. C. The capacity of a printer. D. The number of keyboard keys. Answer: how efficiently and quickly a processor handles tasks. CPU performance describes how effectively and quickly a processor can execute instructions and handle workloads. 30. Which factor can affect CPU performance? A. Number of cores. B. Clock speed. C. Cache size. D. All of these. Answer: all of these. CPU performance can be influenced by factors such as clock speed, number of cores, cache, architecture, and workload. 31. What is a processor's cache used for? A. Storing frequently needed data and instructions for quick access. B. Printing documents. C. Connecting to Wi-Fi only. D. Permanently storing movies. Answer: storing frequently needed data and instructions for quick access. Cache stores frequently accessed information close to the CPU to reduce the time needed to retrieve it. 32. Which cache level is generally the fastest and smallest? A. L1. B. L4. C. L3. D. L5. Answer: L1. L1 cache is generally the smallest and fastest cache level and is located very close to the CPU core. 33. Which cache level is generally larger than L1 but slower? A. L1. B. L2. C. L5. D. Wrong. Answer: L2. L2 cache is generally larger than L1 but has slightly higher access latency. 34. Which cache is commonly shared among multiple CPU cores in modern processors? A. L3 cache. B. L1 cache only. C. ROM. D. BIOS. Answer: L3 cache. In many modern multi-core processors, L3 cache is shared among multiple CPU cores. 35. What is a CPU socket? A. A physical connector on the motherboard for a processor. B. A type of software. C. A storage file. D. A computer virus. Answer: a physical connector on the motherboard for a processor. A CPU socket is the physical interface on a motherboard where a compatible processor is installed. 36. Where is the CPU normally installed? A. Motherboard. B. Keyboard. C. Monitor. D. CPU. Answer: motherboard. The CPU is installed into a compatible socket or interface on the motherboard. 37. Why is a CPU cooling system needed? A. To prevent excessive heat. B. To increase screen size. C. To store files. D. To delete documents. Answer: to prevent excessive heat. CPUs generate heat during operation, so cooling helps keep their temperature within a safe operating range. 38. Which device is commonly used to help cool a CPU? A. CPU fan and heatsink. B. Keyboard. C. Scanner. D. Monitor. Answer: CPU fan and heatsink. A heatsink absorbs and transfers heat away from the CPU, while a fan helps move air across the heatsink. 39. What is a heatsink used for? A. To transfer and dissipate heat from the CPU. B. To store programs. C. To increase RAM capacity. D. To connect a printer. Answer: to transfer and dissipate heat from the CPU. A heatsink draws heat away from the CPU and helps dissipate it into the surrounding air. 40. What does 64-bit CPU generally refer to? A. The processor's architecture and the size of certain data/address operations. B. The size of the monitor. C. The number of keyboard keys. D. The hard disk speed. Answer: the processor's architecture and the size of certain data/address operations. A 64-bit processor architecture supports operations involving 64-bit values and, depending on the design, can support a large address space. 41. Which bus carries data between the CPU and other components? A. Data bus. B. Address book. C. Control bus. D. Power bus only. Answer: data bus. The data bus carries data between the CPU, memory, and other components. 42. Which bus carries memory addresses? A. Data bus. B. Address bus. C. Control bus. D. USB bus. Answer: address bus. The address bus carries the addresses that identify specific memory locations or I/O locations. 43. Which bus carries control signals? A. Data bus. B. Address bus. C. Control bus. D. USB bus. Answer: control bus. The control bus carries signals that coordinate and control operations between the CPU and other components. 44. What is a transistor in a CPU? A. A tiny electronic switching element. B. A storage disk. C. A cooling fan. D. A display device. Answer: a tiny electronic switching element. Transistors are tiny electronic components that can act as switches and are fundamental building blocks of modern CPUs. 45. What does CPU architecture describe? A. The design and organization of a processor. B. The size of a computer case. C. The color of a motherboard. D. The shape of a monitor. Answer: the design and organization of a processor. CPU architecture describes the processor's design, instruction set, organization, and other fundamental characteristics. 46. Which of the following is an example of a processor architecture? A. ARM. B. HDMI. C. JPEG. D. USB. Answer: ARM. ARM is a processor architecture family widely used in smartphones, tablets, embedded systems, and other devices. 47. What is an instruction set? A. A collection of instructions that a processor can understand and execute. B. A list of computer programs. C. A group of keyboard keys. D. A collection of files. Answer: a collection of instructions that a processor can understand and execute. An instruction set defines the operations and instructions that a particular processor architecture supports. 48. Which type of CPU is commonly designed for smartphones and tablets? A. ARM-based processor. B. Vacuum tube processor. C. Mechanical processor. D. Printer processor. Answer: ARM-based processor. ARM-based processors are widely used in smartphones and tablets because of their performance and power efficiency characteristics. 49. What is overclocking? A. Operating a processor above its specified clock speed. B. Turning off a computer. C. Decreasing storage. D. Cleaning the keyboard. Answer: operating a processor above its specified clock speed. Overclocking means running a processor at a clock frequency higher than its standard or rated frequency, which may increase heat and power consumption. 50. Which statement about CPU and RAM is correct? A. CPU processes instructions, while RAM temporarily holds data and instructions. B. CPU only stores files permanently. C. RAM performs all CPU calculations. D. CPU and ROM are exactly the same component. Answer: CPU processes instructions, while RAM temporarily holds data and instructions. The CPU executes instructions, while RAM provides temporary working storage for data and instructions needed during processing. Thanks for watching Aisha Khan Scholar YouTube channel.